Quinn would need to use this to his advantage when fighting on the other planet. There was also a chance for him to level up even quicker, since the system had stated that by fighting along with Peter, he would gain the experience of Peter's skills as well. With hours of practice and the many matches Quinn had played, he didn't realize the time, and the VR pod machines shut off. They usually turned off an hour before curfew time, and his disconnection from the game was a clear sign. While on his way back to his room, Quinn wondered, "Only one day to go for the portal outing. What is the next best step to get stronger?" In his mind, Quinn split up his skills into 4 different categories. He had his blood abilities, such as blood swipe, blood spray, blood bank, and so on. These skills could be upgraded by using them multiple times. He then had his charm skills, daze, influence, and now phantom punch. The next section he counted was his fighting skills, such as flash step, hammer strike, as well as blood hammer and phantom punch, although the last 2 skills were a combination of the other sections. Finally, his ability skills, the shadow skills. After looking at all his skills, Quinn decided to focus on the shadow skills. There were currently still 4 shadow skills grayed out in the system that required him to use skill points to unlock. The only way Quinn knew to get skill points was to upgrade the level of his current shadow skills. It worked the same way as his blood skills. The more he used them, eventually it would level up. This was the best option for Quinn while in the game. The next day had arrived, and as the group agreed, everyone was currently doing their own thing. Everyone was kind of pleased that they had decided to do this. At first, Quinn was a little bit worried about Peter. But when he asked what Peter was planning to do, Peter was already heading off to Logan's room with a bunch of sandwiches held in his arms. It seemed like the two were getting on well enough that Quinn no longer needed to use his blood. While heading to the game room, he noticed Fex too had decided to come along. There wasn't much for him to do in the game after all. When Quinn entered the game, he decided to watch a couple of Fex's matches. It came to him as a surprise that Fex seemed to be playing online rather than using the private server, because just like Quinn, they were both unable to use their abilities inside the game. After watching a couple of games, he could see that Fex was able to beat his opponents without using his blood skills or string abilities. He purely used his body and martial arts to overpower his opponents. During the second match, Fex had meant something quite skillfully, and for the second time, Quinn had seen him use an improvement of the martial arts that were taught to him. The first time was during the match against Leo. Seeing this just reminded Quinn again that he needed to get stronger. Quinn backed out of the game and joined the private server, where he was able to use his shadow abilities freely. Shadow Void. The first thing Quinn activated was Shadow Void. Soon, the room, instead of white, was now covered in purple, shifting shadows above. Quinn planned to level up his level 1 shadow skills first. Since they were lower levels, they would require lesser usage to level up. Currently, the shadow skills were level 1. Shadow Control and Shadow Void. For each level up of skill, Quinn gained 10 stat points. Right now, he was aiming for the skill in his system that costs the most amount of skill points. The skill is known as Shadow Eater, costs a total of 50 points. He repeated the process of activating the skills as many times as he could, and due to it being in the game and the lobby, he didn't run out of MC points. Eventually, Shadow Void leveled up to level 2. Quinn could now decide the size of the Shadow Void, and depending on which, it would either cost far more or far fewer points. The other skills that leveled up were his Shadow Cloak, which was now level 3, along with his Shadow Equip, which was level 3 as well. The time used to cast these skills was incredibly fast, and it seemed like the Cloak skill now used more shadows to hide him, making it even harder for him to be seen by those with good perception. Unfortunately, the only skill that hadn't leveled up for him was his Shadow Control skill, the most useful and powerful skill in his arsenal. The skill allowed him to combine it with his blood swipe, as well as block incoming attacks. But it seemed like the skill could only be used on an opponent, hence it was void in the game. There was some good news, though. When leveling up the skill from level 2 to level 3, the number of skill points given to him increased. Instead of 10 per level up, he was given 15, giving him a total of 30 skill points. But it still wasn't enough for him to unlock the skill Shadow Eater. The day had come to an end, and Quinn would have to be satisfied with improving his current shadow skills and learning the phantom punch for now. Finally, the day had arrived. It was the weekend, and all the first-year students were told to gather inside the portal room once again. It was time to go through the orange portal. Presently, the first-year students were biding their time inside the canteen. Every one of them was seated in their groups within their classes. Meanwhile, their respective homeroom teachers were standing at the end of the long table. On this expedition, each teacher would be traveling with a group of 50 students. Two of the generals, Faye and Leo, would be taking charge of the expedition. Only, they would be moving slightly ahead of the whole group. Soon the classes were called one by one into the portal room. Finally, Dell's class was called, so all of the students belonging to that group began to prepare their things ahead of going through the portal. Standing at the front was Dell. The portal, glowing with orange light, illuminated his figure. Although this time, Dell looked different compared to his usual self. Usually when teaching a class, he would be wearing the standard uniform that the teachers wore. This time the uniform could hardly be seen beneath the beast gear clothing that he donned. The thing was, the armor he was wearing didn't look like a beast gear at all. It rather looked more like a mage outfit. From head to toe, it looked like he was dressed in robes, but if inspected closer, certain accessories could be seen around his wrists and legs. Furthermore, instead of a weapon, a shield was mounted on his back. Before giving his speech to the students, he decided to survey the whole group. He could feel the sweat dripping from his forehead, thinking, "I can't believe that the school is doing this. Why do homeroom teachers have to go along with them? These kids don't even know what could be on the other end. If they did, they would be just as nervous as me." All these fearful thoughts were running through Dell's head. In the past, he had done an orange portal expedition. Because of that, he was aware that the results of the expedition could turn out for the worse. It was like flipping a coin. In some places, it would be a walk in the park, while other times it would feel like they had been sent to hell. In the fear of being sent inside the portal once more, he elected to become a teacher, but it seemed as if fate was toying with him. "All the groups present, please raise their orange scanning devices," Dell said, his voice loudly resounding within the hall. As Dell asked, the representative of each group showed themselves. For Quinn's group, it was Peter. Once again, he was in charge of carrying the group's supplies, and this included the scanner. The only difference this time was that Peter had volunteered to help his master. It also made sense, since Peter was fairly sturdy and had a lot of strength. There were advantages such as his unlimited stamina, so he wouldn't get exhausted that easily by carrying heavy objects. "I will now explain and show you how the scanner works. I will only explain once, so listen up," Dell said, as he raised the scanner for everyone to see. "The scanner is fairly simple to use. You will only need to point it at an object. You can see that on the screen, you can select the area or item that you want to scan. Once you confirm, the scanner will do the rest for you. Simple, right? So remember, don't mess it up," Dell said in a slightly annoyed voice. A student raised his hand, but Dell decided to completely ignore him as he continued with his explanation.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.